Welcome back yet again. It's myself and Andy Jones on the Off the Tools podcast. How are you doing, Andy?
Oh, good.
Excellent.
Vitals first.
There we go. Love it. Bit of branding. That's what I like. Unfortunately, I'm promoting Starbucks. They're yet to become a sponsor, but they appear on pretty much every episode. So Starbucks, get in touch if you want to become a sponsor. Other coffees are available.
We do have space for sponsors, actually.
Yes, we do. So on a serious note, anyone listening, reach out. It's always worth a discussion. So the title of today's episode is Why You Don't Want to Miss the Upcoming Webinars. We're recording this the day after the first one that we've done in 2026, which was called Pricing for Profit. How do you think that one went, mate?
Really, really well. So that was the first webinar that we've done. I've attended lots of other webinars in the past, and it gives a unique experience, I think, for people involved. So yeah, it was really popular. We had really good feedback for it. So we'll certainly be doing more than even the next 3 that we've got planned. So anyone that's not done a webinar or been on a webinar before, it's basically co-hosted by me and Wayne. One of us will take the lead usually in the software that they're a bit more experienced in. So last night was the pricing calculator, which Wayne is much more proficient than me in, so he led that. And the beauty of having us both there's a live chat running. So basically, any questions about the software, or how you action it, how you implement it into your business, anything like that can be asked, and then obviously I'm or the person who's doing backup, so to speak, is able to answer the questions. But yeah, it went really well. Good feedback from it, and yeah, it gives people a chance to interact that you don't get from the podcast, really. So obviously we're always dumping a lot of information and opinions on the podcast. I'm going to sneeze, hang on.
Bless you. Let Andy have his sneeze and tea.
I've not shook off my cold yet, to be honest with you. Yeah, so it gives people a chance to interact that they don't get on the podcasts, really, with the chat function, without it being too close to something like the Wayne's World Wednesdays, where it's a live discussion. This is like somewhere in between. I don't know if you agree on that. A little bit in between a live open chat, Zoom type call, and a podcast where it's just me and Wayne dumping loads of information and chatting some shit.
And just to clarify, because I know some people don't like being on camera and stuff. On the webinars, you're not on camera. You're seeing me and Andy, and you can get engaged in the chat, but you're not on camera, so you can be sat down with your AirPods in, chilling in the evening. You don't need to be upright on camera, wondering who's looking at you or anything like that. So yeah, it'd be good to see some of you, hear some of you on them. So before we go in a bit more detail, I'm just going to quickly go through the ones that we've got planned. Okay, so we've already done the Pricing for Profit, which you can watch on demand. So all you've got to do is go to the webinar page on the website, register for it, but because it's already done, it will just then load the video for you to watch. So I'm not going to go into much detail more about that one because it's done and you can go and watch it or listen to it. So the next one, which is going to be on the 10th of February at 7 p.m, is going to be on quoting and a software called Quotient to help you sort of quote faster, win more work. Then the one after that is going to be around job management. So with ServiceMate, and that is scheduled for the 10th of March at 7 p.m. And then we're going to be doing one on the 7th of April, which is going to be all around Sales Lion, which is a CRM system for marketing and sales. So let's retract a little bit. Let's talk about the upcoming one on Quotient first. And then we'll go through each one individually, just to give the listeners a bit of an insight into what these are going to be. So, Andy, what we're going to be going through.
So, for those that haven't heard of Quotient before or what it's all about, it's essentially, in my opinion, the best quoting software for a trade business available. And it's so a few of the key points with it for me is the most primary one is speed, in my opinion. So you build it out first, or we can build it out for you first if you wanted to outsource that. And you can build all of the types of work that you do. I'm going to use a heating business because that's what my other business is. But you can have things like you can pre-build out a template for a boiler service, a boiler breakdown, a boiler repair, a new boiler installation, a power flush, a smart start install, whatever it might be. But it's applicable to any trade. So you could put on there, for example, if you've got an electrical business, you can have it so that you can build out basically replacing all of the socket fronts in someone's house. And it's interactive software as well. So, for example, if you as a Spark, we'll roll with that. You could have the option for plain white sockets, brushed chrome or black nickel, for example, on your quote. The customer can go in and say, oh, actually, well, I want 10 double sockets and 5 singles and 8 light switches, whatever it might be. And then they can basically accept that, and then it'll go back to you and you can check over that. But because you preload it with all of the pricing for that, you don't have to sit there in the evening going, oh, well, they want 8 light switches in black nickel and it's this much each, and then making a note of it and then keep building this quote. You build it out once and it's there and it's done and the line items are there. So not only is that beneficial if you're going to be perhaps sitting at home working out these quotes, to give a different use point for it, if you have just been to a job, let's say you maybe been, again, we'll use the heating, if you've been to a boiler breakdown, you deem that boiler to be beyond economical repair, you can then jump in your van, drive around the corner, grab a coffee, and jump on your phone, send them a quote for a new boiler. You've already got the information you need because you've been there, and that will really separate you or your business from the next guy who perhaps might go, he'll look at it, he'll come away, then he gets distracted, he gets busy. A week later, the customer's ringing me, oh, have you got that quote? You've left the job. 10 minutes later, they've had a quote. So not only is that better for you because it's done and you can forget about it, the customer's like, oh, wow, never had that before. I'm normally chasing them for a quote. So there's a couple of key points on the speed. The next big hitter for me is the fact that within Quotient, you can house, I wouldn't necessarily say your full T's and C's, but basically there's a section at the bottom of Quotient where the customer signs to accept the quote. Therefore, within the quote, within the line items, you can put your broken down or sections of your T and C's that are relevant to that specific job inside the quote. So again, I'll use boiler example. If you're doing a boiler service, you might put on there, if we turn the boiler off at the main fuse spur to do the work, and then as we flick it back on, the fan pops, quote unquote, Worcester Junior, then it's not our problem, essentially. And I think this is something that trips a lot of guys up, isn't it? Like, because then they feel like, shit, it's all on me, that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if you drain a boiler down, and we've all had it, customers like, well, it was fine till you touched it. You know what I mean? Like for the sparks, you might swap a fuse. If you go and swap in a fuse board, and then there could have been maybe an iffy connection somewhere in the system that when you put a brand new, really sensitive RCB board on in play, then as soon as you put it on, it starts tripping. You can put on there that if a defective socket is found when we replace the new board, then there'll be an additional charge for us to then do a fault find and find out which socket or light or whatever it might be is causing the problem. So at point number 2, it's covering your ass. Point number 3, without sounding a bit hoo-ha, it's a pretty software. I can't think of a better way of
pretty.
It's an attractive software. Is that a more manly word to use? Maybe. It's a good looking software. because it's just nicely laid out. It's got your business logo and your business details. It looks like a really nice, like professional looking quote, doesn't it? Like when you've had a letter, a professional letter from somewhere, it's got the business logo. Yeah, it's got all the business details, which looks extra good if you've got an office or you've got maybe a PO box. You can add that on and it will look like, such an office space or whatever. It just looks really professional, and it helps to elevate your business. And then you can put individual pictures on there. So again, I built one out for one of the Sparks, and as I've just said about the coloured sockets, so you can have your section there where it has the white sockets. You can have a picture of a white socket, a line item saying this section is for plain white generic sockets. Put your pricing on there per socket change, 60 quid per socket, whatever you charge on there. And then the next line item being, like the black nickel, have the picture of the black nickel. This is for an upgrade to black nickel, and then it might be 80 quid a socket. And then the customer can go in, choose how many they want for that. Well, like I said before, X number of that, X number of that, and then it goes back to you and you can just check it. So what you're, an extra thing on that, I'll roll straight into, is you're basically handing some of the legwork back to the customer. So instead of you having to say to the customer back and forth via conversation, oh, how many sockets did you want? Oh, I'll have to go and check. Then they go and check. They text you. Oh, I wanted 8 light switches. How many double sockets? I'll just go and check. Oh, did you want USBs on them? Oh, you know what I mean? Basically, you hand it to the customer. It's live. It's interactive. They do that legwork. They send it back to you to check. And it's kind of bulletproof. So I know this has been asked before. Can the customer change the pricing? No. The pricing is preset. They only have the option to change the quantity. So they can choose, 8 sockets or whatever it might be, and then it comes back to you and you look over it. It will automatically update the price according to what they've chosen. And again, that's built out in a way to protect it. And then obviously you can use that data to process your order, send that information to your supplier, the customer's having this, and then you can, as I say, they've signed it and accepted the quote, and at that point then you can then book the job in. You can obviously then use that to take deposits and things like that, but they're the big points for me. I'm not sure if you've got anything to add to that. I know this is software I've really embraced.
Really, I think you've explained it amazingly there, mate. I think maybe I'll just share like a use case just to show another example, There's been many times that I've used it to sell a boiler, right? And we've all been there. So obviously the customer tells you that they want to go for let's just use Worcester as an example, Worcester 8000, 50 kilowatt. They want all the bells, all the whistles. You put together a quote, you send it, and then they dark you. You don't hear about it. I call it champagne lifestyle on lemonade budget, when in reality they got carried away. They can't afford it for one reason or the other, and they go with Dave down the road that's going to fit the Worcester 1000 for £1,000 cheaper. What Quotient allows you to do is create options. So I don't tell the customer that I probably do in my spiel, but I don't purposely tell them. But on every boiler quote, I will give 3 options. I'm a Worcester man, like it or don't like it, but that's what I do. I will always do, if it's a combi, it'll be a 1000, a 4000, and an 8000. So what I'm doing is I'm giving the customer the choice of a low end, a medium, and a high end. I'm not making that decision for them. I'm making the same money on all of them. Technically, I'll probably make more money on the lower one because I squeeze the lower price up a little bit more to try and push them in. But that's what I love about it. I love the options that you can give that give that customer the get out. They might not want to spend £4,000 on said product. They might only have a budget of 3, and in the traditional way of quoting, where you listen to them and you send them the quote with the standard, like what you've discussed, you're losing out on that ability for them to go, oh, actually I can't afford that, because most people won't tell you that. They'll just either ignore you. Some will get in contact and say, oh, can you change the quote? And then guess what? You're the one at 7 o'clock at night that's got to get on your computer while you're trying to put the kids to bed. So that's what I love about it. And I again, you've already mentioned it, but I love that the customer has to sign and agree. So we have our terms and conditions linked in. So they have to, they can click it, it loads up, our full terms and conditions are there. They have to physically sign, which is recorded digitally as well. So there's like an IP address all logged to it. So if there was ever a dispute, you know, you've got some security that you've followed the right protocol, you've given the customer the information and they've chosen to accept it. And like Andy said, it's very pretty. It does look very nice. And it just elevates you from everybody else. So yeah, I can't wait to, obviously at the moment we're just talking about it. Next on the episode, on the webinar, you're going to see it. Andy's going to take you through step by step on how it all works, what it looks like. And yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say that I didn't get a chance to do before is just what you were saying there, really. So the three, we're always big advocates for the three options for customers. Yeah. And one of the reasons it's important, and Quotient's brilliant for this because it's so visual, is, you know, we've all been beaten by, you know, the guy down the road, the one-man band. He's probably working out of a people carrier SUV type car, you know what I mean? Like, because it's so he can charge rock bottom. But a lot of the time you might find that the quote, isn't, like Wayne's just said, has not been apples with apples. So if you think of what a 4,000 is going to be the best in this scenario, and you send a quote for a 4,000, and then the guy down the road quotes for, you know, a main eco, which is, you know, half the price of a 4,000, less than, and the customer says, "Oh, I've had a cheaper quote." That is built in there that they can see what they're getting. You've not just written it down. You can say, well, it's this, and you've got a brief about it. And if they want to drop it down to something cheaper, then they've got their option to drop down to something like a 1,000. We're Worcester as well. Best customer service, and, you know, best protection, best the way they look after the supplier, the installer is the best in my opinion. But yeah, so it gives it a better visual comparison for the customer to see what they're actually getting. So you're not in that battle of just, you know, verbally telling the customer, because it's so visual, the customer can see what they're getting for their money. When you just tell them or even text them a price, it's just not the same. It doesn't hit in the same way, does it? When it's there and it's visual. And another thing as well is it gives them, like, customers like to have a little bit of control, I think, even if it's guided control, let's say, you know what I mean? You're giving them options. All of the options still work for you as a business. Like Wayne said, you know, you're not, like, if you're fitting a 1,000 or an 8,000, while there might be a 500 quid price difference, you're still making the right amount of money for you. Yes, you're going to make a little bit more on one or the other, but it's not like you can use Quotient to tell the customer that that the only reduction they are getting with this is in the unit and the product itself.
It's the product itself.
So you can leverage that to push them to the better product. To me, the 4,000 is generally the most popular because it's sort of gut shot and it gives the best all around. So that's what we tend to fit the most of. But yeah, that's just a good point there. It gives you authority, I think, over the guy down the road is another big one to add on that.
Definitely. And anyone that wants to come on that webinar, that one is, as I said at the beginning, is the 10th of February at 7 p.m. Head to the website to make sure you're registered for that. Then the following one after that is going to be the 10th of March, which is around ServiceMate. So ServiceMate is a job management system. So just quickly to rewind a little bit here, you know, you're not going to find one software that does everything you want. So I call it a software stack. So in my business and in Andy's, we use SalesLine at the front end. We use ServiceMate as the job management, and we use Quotient as the quoting, and then we use Xero at the end for the accounting side. If you're trying to run your business just off one software, there's always going to be things that it can't do, which is why we stack these together. So ServiceMate, for those that don't know, is a day-to-day job management system. I could talk for hours on this, so I'm going to try and keep it as brief as I can. But in essence, ServiceMate, from from your user point of view, when you're out in the field, is an app that you will see the jobs that you've got. You can travel to them. It uses Google Maps and everything. You can raise and do your certificates, your invoicing, and then behind the scenes, there's some, I'd say, sort of average level automation. So booking confirmations, booking reminders, on-way text messaging, so they can track you like Uber. And it just gives you a central point. And obviously there's a calendar system all within that for that to manage, either it's just yourself or whether you're managing staff. And it becomes the hub of the business, doesn't it? From a day-to-day perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah. What else does it do?
So just to give a different split on it as well, there's kind of two sides to ServiceMate, isn't there? So you have what Wayne just talked about, what's essentially run via the app. So that can be done. It's optimized for Apple. So you can use it on an iPhone. So our engineers use iPhone Maxes. It's the best compromise between carrying an iPad, a bulky iPad, which, while it may look a little bit more professional, is more challenging for the engineers. We'll go into that more on the webinar of why an iPhone's better, the way it integrates with Apple CarPlay and things like that, which you can't on an iPad. But you've got the app essentially. There is a light version that came out relatively recently that can be used on Android. So some of our subcontractors have Android phones, so they use the light version, which works fine for a subcontractor. If they're in-house engineer, then they have iPhone supplied. Then there's the desktop version, which the girls in the office use. It's a very different beast. There's a lot more you can do with it, and is literally designed for the office type setting. They got far more control. It looks better on a desktop and things like that. But before I had office staff, I didn't really touch the desktop version. So you don't necessarily need to use it. You can, and we say this to a lot of the lads, a lot of tradesmen, software might not be the forte, and they get a little bit overwhelmed with when they look at the desktop version and think, shit, I don't have the computer literacy for this. The app is so fucking easy to use that you don't need to worry about it. Again, we'll go through this in the webinar. I ran the business from the app for about a year before I even started looking at the desktop version when my first office staff started. So, but yeah, there's two sides to that essentially. But it is, in my opinion, the best field management software out there for anything up to maybe, what would you say, 15 field staff? Something like that.
I think you start to stretch it if you start going above that level. But it can comfortably run up to that level super easy, this will I'm looking forward to this webinar, even though Quotient's sort of a bit more my baby. We're going to double team this one, aren't we? And this is something that you really need to see ServiceMate on the webinar, the way we'll deliver it. You'll see just what it's capable of. A lot of guys in the trades aren't using any software, and the ones that, probably about half of the ones that are using software are probably using, let's call it budget software, maybe entry level.
So that doesn't actually do that much, which is infinitely better than nothing, but not a patch on something like ServiceMate. And again, if you are looking to have staff, whether it's field staff or office staff, then you really need to move away from the budget software and get something like ServiceMate. And in our opinion, ServiceMate is the best one for that, for sure. Certificates is another big one. So it allows you to, rather than having what a lot of the cheap softwares do, which is just a very generic, basic looking certification. So something like, we've all the heating lads will have used the physical certificate CP12 pads, the yellow and black ones previously. What you can do on ServiceMate is align the design of them a little bit more to your business. You can have your accreditation logos across the bottom. You can have your, Trustpilot and Which and things like that all across the bottom. You can make it look attractive. You got your business logo on there, things like that. And again, much like Quotient, it's a way of really elevating your business, isn't it? When, customers are very visual, aren't they? You know what I mean? That when they get something like that, one thing I wanted to touch on is that for, again, anyone who does like fault finding type stuff, so whether it's the heating lads or the electricians, etc., even like mechanics and things who do mobile, the anything that requires some sort of investigation, fault find, diagnostics type visit, a lot of guys struggle to increase their pricing or charge strongly. We spoke about it last night. They might say, just give us 20 quid for that. What ServiceMate allows you to do is have a nice job report form that can house pictures. So again, the heating lad, you might go out, do a diagnostics on a heating system, find multiple faults with it. You can then put pictures on, put a nice big brief, and the customer will get a copy of this job report. So that then again in turn has a knock-on effect on being able to charge for that visit. You can't charge £200 for a call out to then just say, oh yeah, this is the fault, and walk away. Whereas when you've got something tangible from our experience, when the customer gets something like that, it's go, well, okay, I appreciate that. So yeah, that was just something extra that it does. But yeah,
definitely, and there's so much more that we haven't talked about right now. But just to confirm the date and time for that one, that is going to be on the 10th of March at 7 p.m. And then that leads us on to Sales Lion. So Sales Lion is a bit of a funny one, because I would say the biggest question I get is, why do I need Sales Lion? And in essence, the shortest answer I can give it is, it takes the business and puts it on steroids. Okay, it bulks it up across all areas. So I'm going to do my best to explain it logically. Okay, so before there were job management systems, bigger companies would use something called a CRM, which is a customer relationship management software, which ultimately ServiceMate sort of is. And so is Quotient to a degree. It stores customers' details and log stuff. But what Sales Lion is a very cool tool based around that principle. Okay, so at its heart, it's a database of all the customers that have come through your business, whether they're leads, whether they've turned into jobs. But then from that, you build on top of all of that. So we mentioned booking reminders and things like that ServiceMate does. What Sales Lion allows us to do is bolt on a lot more communication and a lot more interaction with the customer. So a few of the example journeys are on ServiceMate. You have the ability to send one text and one email to follow up on a job. Okay. But what we do on Sales Lion is create a unique journey. So when that job completes over here on ServiceMate, it enters a journey in Sales Lion where we communicate with the customer. Obviously, this is all like bespoke. So some people have it communicate 3 or 4 times, over a short period to check the job's done okay, to ask for a review, then maybe ask for a referral, and then another check-in at the end of the month. And this is all automated. So you don't have to do any of this. This just happens on autopilot. It's probably one of the most popular journeys. The lads that are using Sales Lion, their review count just grows week in, week out, because we're being methodical about how we communicate with that customer in that one example. Another one is a boiler reminder. So again, on ServiceMate, you get one option, one email and one text that goes out. you're a human. How many times do you have to be reminded that your MOT's due, or that you need to book something in, or whatever it might be? You have to be constantly reminded. In today's day and age, one reminder just isn't enough. So we got this whole journey for boiler reminders and safety certificate reminders, where we actually check in 6 months after the job, just as a bit of a marketing email, just sort of saying, can you believe it's been 6 months since we did the jobs at yours? Just checking if you needed any other services, etc., etc. So it's just a nice sort of soft way to get in front of that customer again. Then it goes into a little bit more of a robust journey where we communicate and we tell them, like, we do like a 2-month warning, 1-month warning, service imminent, service overdue, and the amount of new jobs that picks up is unbelievable. So they're just a couple of examples of some of the automations that can be done. It also has a great feature which I call customer journeys. Other software might call it pipelines, where we can then have a visualization on where customers are along the sales journey. So a great example for that is a boiler sale. So there's like columns, and then there's like job cards housed within them at the different stages that they're at. So for a new boiler, it could be that they've sent an inquiry, then they've booked a quote, then the quote's been sent, and then obviously, hopefully, the quote's been accepted, and then job completed. And at all of those different stages that it goes through, you can have automations go out that nurture that relationship. It also has AI is built within it, so you can have a widget on your website so that people can inquire on the website. There's a social media calendar that you can put your posts in and schedule it to go to Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc. And it really just becomes the hub of the marketing and sales activities within the business, doesn't it, Andy?
It does, yeah. One big one for us, given that we're a service and repair specialist in our heating business, is the reminders that you were talking about before for something like a boiler service. So some guys are still in that sort of outdated mindset of waiting for the customer to ring them. Your bottle's leaking.
Yeah, I just noticed that. I was trying to like
cool.
out of that.
When you wreck your keyboard, is the remark. Obviously, a lot of lads will wait for the customers to ring them. The problem with that, if you don't have office staff, is if they ring at a time where you're, on a job, you're probably going to miss that call, and then they will probably get hold of someone else. By using the reminder system, they're more likely to then respond to that reminder directly. And you can also then, if there's a tie into ServiceMate or any job management software, you can then basically send them a booking link if you wanted to. But I think it's thinking a lot helps you to think about your business, your trade business, as a bit more of a business. A lot of guys like, oh, I'm not sure I like the idea of that, constantly getting hold of the customer, but that's what you have to do. You know what I mean? And that's what separates you from just being a tradesman and just doing jobs, to actually having a professional, successful business, in my opinion, because that's any other business would do that, wouldn't they? You know what I mean? Any other business would keep the customer in the loop, and they would send them the appropriate reminders. But as you already alluded to, it's a soft way of doing it, isn't it? You know what I mean? You're not jumping on the phone, ringing. They get an email that gives them a little bit of a nudge, basically, yeah. And then once it gets to that point where it's, let's say, a month away, if you want to, then you can jump on the phone with them if they haven't already come back in. That's the one half of the big one for us, and then the other one was the review system. That is, in my opinion, unrivaled. And as you say, no singular piece of software can cover everything, which is why the stack is so important, isn't it? Because then everything has its own place. Yes, there's a little bit of CRM capability in ServiceMate, but it just, I think I'm a big fan of having the individual pieces of software for the roles that they're the best at. So leave service mate as a job management, leave sales line as a CRM, and build them all, stack them all together, Quotient as your quoting software, and then have everything doing the best that it can possibly do, really. But just one last thing, really, with Sales Lion for us is you can, once you then get a member in the office, that's when, you know, your analogy of taking things up to being on steroids really kicks in now. Because if you have the ability for someone to manage the business all day, such as an office-based person, or maybe your wife is doing the admin side of things, you can then drive all communication through Sales Lion, and you can funnel it all through there, basically. So if somebody's replying to an email, a text, a WhatsApp, through your Facebook, for example, your Facebook page, everything can go through Sales Lion. If you're using the Sales Lion widget on your website, any communication that people use on that for the chatbot widget, the communication, you can sit there and see it all in real time. Again, we will go through this on the webinar, but once you reach that point where you can have someone running the business day to day while you're cracking on the tool work, you can then elevate your customer communication and that customer journey to a level that you will have never been to before, using a singular piece of software for all communication. And that's was a big thing that we found once we put the first person in the office, of how pleased customers were with the communication. And that shows on the reviews then of how customers often rate us, 5 stars, 10 stars, whatever the platform it is. It's usually always on communication, because if you're sat in front of a screen like we are now, and a customer sends an email, text, WhatsApp, whatever it might be, and you're showing it in a singular piece of software and you can just reply straight away, there's no time like them. So the customer's journey is elevated and the experience is elevated, which then has a knock-on effect on conversion rate, reviews, etc., etc.
Yeah, I've got nothing really more to add on that, apart from, if you're interested in any of these webinars, please make sure you head over to the Off the Tools website and get registered. You need to register to get involved. The Sales Lion one is scheduled for the 7th of April at 7 p.m. So again, they're all housed on the webinar page within the Off the Tools website. So all you've got to do is go on and then click on the ones that you want to register for. They are not to be missed. They're going to, like, anyone that was on last night's one or watching it on demand will see the energy and the information is top class. So and they're completely free. There's no catch. There's no hard selling at the end or anything stupid like that. We're doing this to help the industry and help as many people as we can. Obviously, there are paid services that we offer, but if you're interested in that, you can reach out and we can discuss that. But please make sure that you grab these opportunities, because there's not many other people putting the information out like we are into the world, trying to help tradesmen across the UK and beyond. On that note, I've got nothing more to say. Any closing words, Andy?
No, just don't miss them. Like I say, non-committal, no selling on them, just showing what we can, what services we offer, answering questions that you have about it, and then you can go away and have a think and
go from
there.
There.
Something for you. Then, like you say, you can reach out.
See you soon.